Inside, the TV keeps talking. Someone says something from the couch, and your body stays a little too alert for the hour. Then, you step over the porch threshold, lower yourself into the patio chair by the back door, and let both hands rest on your knees while the yard goes quiet around you. To family, that moment can look familiar in the wrong way. There they go again, outside alone, choosing distance over company. But for many older adults, the truth is not colder than that. Sometimes the backyard is the only place where a person does not feel crowded by being known. So if the body settles this quickly, just by crossing that short threshold, the yard is doing more than offering quiet. And then something quieter starts to show up. Along the fence line, a plant sits beside the chair, and your fingers turn one dry leaf without any real need to finish a task or improve the yard. That is part of why the backyard can feel so different from the living room. Out there, you do not have to keep being a social version of yourself. You do not have to answer right away, follow the rhythm of other people's moods, or wear the kind of face that keeps everyone else comfortable. For many older adults, that is where the relief begins. The yard asks less. It touches less. It does not keep reading you while you are trying to recover your own pace. And once a space starts doing that, the preference for it is no longer as simple as wanting quiet. The part that gets missed usually began much earlier in life. Many people who need this kind of space spent years being the one who stayed available, kept the peace, answered the question, softened the room, and carried more of the emotional traffic than anyone named out loud. You can feel that history in a small moment at the back door, your hand still resting on the knob for a second before you step fully outside, as if your body knows the threshold matters before your mind explains why. That long habit built a real strength. It taught you how to stay present around other people. It also built a hidden cost. After enough years of adjusting yourself to shared space, the nervous system can begin to crave one corner where it does not have to keep negotiating its shape. And that is where the yard stops looking simple. What makes this easy to misread is that it often comes from strength, not fragility. At dusk, you sit in the patio chair and watch the shadows shift across the fence, instead of forcing yourself to stay in the living room a little longer for the sake of appearances. That choice can look distant from the outside, but many older adults make it for a deeply responsible reason. They know what happens when they stay overstimulated too long. Patience thins, the body tightens, small talk starts to feel heavier than it should, so they step out before strain turns into sharpness. There is dignity in that. It is a quiet form of self-respect, and sometimes even a way of protecting the relationship itself. The harder part is that this kind of mature self-management rarely looks noble while it is happening. It often just looks like leaving. The hidden cost shows up in how easy this is to misunderstand inside the very home the person is trying to protect. From the living room doorway, the patio chair is only a short distance away. Yet the body sitting there can start to look emotionally farther than it really is. That is the painful part. A person steps outside to prevent overload, to lower the pressure, to come back steadier, and the move itself gets read as withdrawal. For many older adults, that creates a quiet double burden. They are already carrying the strain of too much social contact, and then they also carry the sadness of being misread by the people closest to them. The backyard helps them recover, but it can also make them look colder than they feel. And this is where the story becomes harder than a simple preference for solitude. And this is where the outer story and the inner story split apart. Someone inside the house sees you step onto the porch, lower your head a little, and sit beside a single gardening glove left near the chair, and they may think they are watching you pull away. What is actually happening can be almost the opposite. For many older adults, that short move outside is not a refusal of closeness, it is an attempt to return to it in better shape. They see withdrawal. What is really happening is recovery. The person in the chair is not disappearing from the family. They are trying to lower the pressure before it hardens into silence, irritability, or that tired flatness that makes connection harder for everyone. Once you see that difference, the backyard no longer looks like distance. It looks like regulation with dignity. The deeper truth is that the backyard may be giving back more than rest. For some older adults, shared indoor space can slowly press them into a role. Someone who listens, responds, stays pleasant, stays available, and keeps the emotional weather from shifting too much. Out in the yard, even for a few minutes, that pressure loosens. A chair, a fence line, a little evening air, and suddenly the person is not reduced to function in quite the same way. They feel more correctly sized again. That is the part people rarely see. The backyard is not where they go to become less connected. It is where they go to become more fully themselves before returning. And when a space can do that much quiet repair, it is no longer just a place to sit. It becomes part of how a person stays inwardly intact. But it is worth saying plainly that stepping outside is not always a complete answer in itself. That does not make the need selfish, strange, or less worthy of respect. It often means backyard time has become a quiet form of recovery from social strain that the body recognizes before the person fully explains it. And when a place protects your capacity to return gently to other people, it is doing more than offering quiet. By this point, the misunderstanding deserves a cleaner translation. They see you choosing the backyard again, sitting in the same chair near the back door, looking out at the fence line instead of staying inside where everyone else is. What is actually happening is much more careful than that. You are not stepping away because you love your family less. You are stepping out because the quiet asks less of your nervous system, and that gives you a chance to come back kinder, steadier, and more whole. Wanting the backyard is not always withdrawal. Sometimes it is how a person stays whole. And for many older adults, having that seen correctly matters deeply, because the small distance they take is often the very thing protecting their ability to stay connected. So the opening image means something different by the end. The patio chair near the back door, the short porch step, and the quiet strip of yard beyond it are no longer signs of distance or rejection. They have become a small place of return. You stand up, rest one hand on the back of the chair, and pause for a second before going inside, as if something in you has come back into proportion. That is why, for some older adults, the backyard is not where they go to disappear. It is where they go to recover enough of themselves to be present again without shrinking into a role. The chair was never just a chair. It was a threshold between social overload and a more dignified way of staying connected. For many older adults, this need is not a flaw, and it is not a quiet rejection of love. It is often a signal that shared space has begun asking more of the nervous system than the outside world can see. The backyard becomes meaningful because it offers relief without demanding performance. It lets a person stop being red for a little while and start feeling like themselves again. And when that is true, the brief step outside deserves a gentler understanding, because what looks like distance may actually be one of the ways a person protects their steadiness, their warmth, and their ability to return.